I wonder what we know about Robinson Jeffers today, or Robin, as his friends knew him, though the nickname seems too nervous, too flighty, too delicate for the poet that I read in college, when he was especially well known for his translation or his adaptation of Euripides' play Medea, which is a fierce and gaudy play, flamboyant and violent. He was known then, when I was in college, as a Central California poet. In 1919, he had bought property on the coast overlooking the bay near Carmel, and the sublime landscape there gave him the setting for most of his poems. But he had grown up in Pittsburgh and in Europe, where he was often in boarding schools and where he refined his knowledge of Latin and Greek and French and German. He was a scholar by nature and multi-talented as well as polyglot. And in fact, at one point, he was head of his class in medical school at USC, of all places. Between the early life and the later domestic life in Big Sur, where he made himself into a stonemason and built a cottage that he then expanded on in later years, and also built an extravagant kind of Irish Gothic tower, some 4 stories tall. In between these times, he spent a good deal of his days in Southern California. He lived in Long Beach and down the road in Highland Park. He took his BA at Occidental, then went on, as I have said, to USC, where he worked on a medical degree and taught physiology, and fell in love with a somewhat older married woman who was the wife of a prominent young lawyer in town. Their affair led to a notorious divorce. In those days, divorces made headlines. And eventually then to his own marriage, to Una, as she was called. That was her very Spencerian name. And in due time, they moved north up to Big Sur and settled down. The home, as I say, was made of stone, and so it's still there. You can visit Tor House and Hawk Tower, which are maintained by the Tor House Foundation these days. This is a good time to do it, actually. There's an annual festival in October, Jeffers Festival, at Tor House. This year, I think it's October 5th to 7th. So if you're in the area, I think you should drop in. I said they settled down, but that cozy phrase is just as inappropriate as his nickname, Robin, is incongruous. For one thing, his poems are remarkably dark and often dour, both in terms of their subject matter and in terms of their philosophy. And Jeffers had a philosophy, which he called inhumanism. Somebody suggested later that he should have called it ahumanism rather than inhumanism, and probably the connotations would have been better, but its sinister overtones are, I think, pertinent. This philosophy is founded on the premise that humanity is spume on the surface of an ocean that's always crashing into granite cliffs. Human achievements, indeed all of history, human achievements are risibly puny and ephemeral, and those who celebrate them are ludicrously egocentric. Birds and animals and fish are accorded respect. After all, they are not sentimentalizing braggarts. But the only thing truly worthy of celebration is the terrible and immortal and utterly indifferent beauty of the world and its things apart from us. The rock and the ocean and the cosmos beyond them, which Jeffers sometimes identifies, all of these things, that is, with God. His poems, correspondingly, want to be simple, inevitable, powerful, fundamental. There is little room in them for humor and none for optimism. Hence his essential and unmistakable difference from Walt Whitman, to whom he is nonetheless frequently compared, if only because they both wrote lots of long poems with long lines that trade in sometimes immense generalizations. But Whitman joked and laughed and was optimistic, and Robin Jeffers didn't care a whit about wit or about being happy. Then for a second thing, after seeming to, he didn't try, it happened. He established himself in the 20s and the 30s, 1920s and 30s, even made the cover of Time magazine. He lost much of his public esteem, in part because he was an unabashed nationalist, a very stubborn individualist, an isolationist, and a pacifist who opposed war, even war, against the likes of Hitler and Mussolini, and who disdained the democratic heroes of the day, Roosevelt and Churchill among them. Medea, which almost everyone agreed was staggering drama, opened in 1947 and ran for a long time on Broadway with Judith Anderson in the title role. They were good friends, and she worked in a number of his plays. But it was his last acclaimed work, though he lived on until 1962. And now even Medea, I think, has all but sunk out of public view. The most recent Norton Anthology of Literature has omitted his poems altogether. That's an odd fact, I think, since he was a vehement ecologist before we even had that word. But I think he himself would probably say about the disappearance of his work. See? In any event, he was never writing for praise or renown, or even posterity. Poets who endure never write chiefly for their contemporaries, of course. They write for Horace and for Marvell and for Keats and for their yet unborn avatars. But Jeffers might not have cared even about those luminaries. Whether his poems will last, in spite of him, so to speak, we're still finding out.